Welcome to the Steelers Fix podcast, and thanks for hanging out with me today. Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed to Steelers Fix on YouTube so you never miss any episodes, clips, or post-game reactions. We've got a loaded one today. Arthur Smith talked, Teryl Austin talked, Rodgers gave an update on the wrist, Mason Rudolph explained his mindset, DK Metcalf gave his thoughts, Zach Frazier stayed steady as always, and we're heading into a massive matchup in Chicago against Caleb Williams and the 7-3 Bears. I'll wrap it all up with my full game prediction at the end. Let's start with Arthur Smith. You can tell this week is all about flexibility at quarterback. Smith basically said there are always contingency plans, but this week even more than usual. He said his job is to be ready either way and that the offense has to adapt depending on who plays. So right out of the gate, you can tell they're building two game plans. One for Rodgers if he can go, and one for Mason Rudolph if he needs to start. At running back, Smith said Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell are interchangeable, especially on third downs. That's huge because if Rodgers isn't fully functional with that wrist, the backs are going to be more involved in the short game, blitz pickup, and those timing routes underneath. He was also asked about Caleb Johnson, and basically joked that if he gets a game where he can call 40 runs, he'll happily do it. Classic Arthur Smith. He wants an identity built on physicality and balance. He also touched on Roman Wilson, specifically the red zone route near the goal line before halftime last week. Smith said they're always evaluating how they're using guys and how they're working details of routes. That shows two things. Roman is clearly in their long-term plans, and they're pushing him to clean up little things that become big things against good defenses. Switch over to Teryl Austin. Everything he said was centered on containing Caleb Williams. He said it's everyone's job, not just one player, to stop him from killing them with mobility. And that's true. Caleb's taken almost 60% fewer sacks this season compared to last year. He's gotten way better at avoiding hits. Austin talked about Corey Trice's season ending, and you could tell that really stung. Then he praised Jack Sawyer's growth. When asked why they've mixed coverages so heavily the last few weeks, Austin said the goal is not letting offenses lock in on any one tendency. As long as they keep mixing things, they avoid playing at a disadvantage. He also talked about Darius Slay's return and James Pierre's role. Austin said Pierre has earned the right to be on the field, but when Slay's healthy, he's going to play. And Tomlin echoed that. Slay is the starter, Pierre still gets reps, and they'll use both. After Pierre's big game versus Cincinnati, that's well-deserved. Now to the quarterback situation. Aaron Rodgers didn't practice Wednesday as expected, but he said the wrist feels better than Sunday, and he's hoping to get back on the field Thursday to test it. That's the first hurdle. He needs clearance, he needs to feel like he can protect himself, and he needs to see if he can function with snaps under center. He talked about how much he loves Chicago, the atmosphere, the fans, even though those fans definitely do not love him back. He joked about not wanting to be the villain anymore, but let's be real. If he plays, those fans will boo him from warm-ups to the final snap. Rodgers explained the exact moment the injury happened. Late in the first half versus Cincinnati, 2nd and 7, play clock running down, they call timeout, and after one more snap, he had to go get checked. Mason Rudolph came in and led the offense to points on both drives. Tomlin called him oozing confidence, and Rudolph joked that he was actually oozing jitters. What I love is the relationship between Rodgers and Rudolph. Rodgers called Mason a troll, in a good way, and said he makes every day fun with jokes and banter. Rudolph fired back that Rodgers has plenty of material since he's the guy with paparazzi around his house. That's a good vibe in the quarterback room. It matters late in the season. Rodgers said the staff is experimenting with braces and that playing under center is harder than shotgun with a wrist injury. If needed, they can shift into more pistol looks to protect him, but the goal is to run the full offense. Meanwhile, Rudolph said he's always preparing like he'll play. Not too high, not too low. He's had every role. Starter, backup, forgotten man, back in the mix. That's why he stays steady. DK. Metcalf said the biggest difference between Rodgers and Rudolph is just communication during the week. Each quarterback likes certain routes run different ways, but he said it's not a problem at all. He praised how Rudolph stepped in versus Cincinnati and said Rodgers' mindset this week is exactly where it needs to be. Zach Frazier said he doesn't change anything based on the quarterback. He feels confident with both guys. He said he took tons of reps with Mason all summer before Rodgers arrived, and obviously tons with Rodgers during the season. He's never snapped to a quarterback with a wrist injury, but he basically said if Rodgers is cleared to play, the snap will be fine. Classic center answer, steady and reliable. Now let's talk Steelers legends. L.C. Greenwood is a semifinalist for the seniors category for the Hall of Fame. Absolute monster of the steel curtain, 4 rings, over 70 sacks, in an era where sacks weren't even officially tracked. And Maurkice Pouncey, first-year eligible, is right in the mix too. 9 Pro Bowls, multiple All-Pro seasons, and the heart of the offensive line for a decade. Ben Roethlisberger basically said Pouncey was his comfort blanket and the most valuable guy on the offense every single season. Both of those dudes belong in Canton. Now let's turn to Chicago. The Bears are 7-3 and leading the NFC North. They just pulled off another wild finish, beating Minnesota 19-17. That's now their 5th comeback win of the season. The Steelers are 6-4 after beating Cincinnati 34-12, thanks to a pick 6 by Kyle Duggar, a scoop and score by James Pierre, and a touchdown from Mason Rudolph to Kenneth Gainwell. The Bears own the all-time series and are 18-1 versus Pittsburgh at home. So yeah, a win in Chicago would be massive historically. Matchup time. First, TJ Watt versus Caleb Williams. Watt is doing Watt things again. Sacks, TFLs, pressures, forced fumbles. Caleb has drastically cut down sacks this season, nearly 60% fewer. But Watt is another level of finisher. Pittsburgh must rush with discipline, keep Caleb in structure, and not let him extend. Next, the deep ball. Caleb's improved as a quarterback, but deep accuracy isn't elite yet. He missed 2 big ones last week that could have ended the game early. Pittsburgh's pass defense has given up yards all season, including explosive plays and tight end production. Chicago has weapons to test that. The Bears' run defense is solid. Pittsburgh's run game has struggled statistically. If Chicago shuts down Warren and Gainwell early, that puts pressure on whoever plays quarterback for the Steelers. On the flip side, DK Metcalf is a huge mismatch for almost any secondary. Chicago did a nice job on Justin Jefferson, but Metcalf brings a different style: speed, power, vertical dominance. Depending on Chicago's injury situation at corner, they may need safety help over DK all game. The biggest key of all, third down. Chicago is top 11 on offense and number 2 in the NFL on defense in third down rate. Pittsburgh is middle of the pack on offense and bottom 3rd on defense in that situation. If the Steelers flip that metric, they win. If they don't, it's trouble. Time for the prediction. If Aaron Rodgers plays and can function reasonably well, I think the Steelers can stay balanced and hit enough plays to steal this game. If Mason Rudolph plays, I still think the offense can move, just in a different way. More quick game, more play action, rely on the defense. I'm taking the Steelers in a tight one. Pittsburgh 24, Chicago 23. 1 defensive stop late, 1 big play by TJ Watt, and the Steelers walk out of Soldier Field with a rare win in that building. Thanks for tuning in to the Steelers Fix podcast. Make sure you're subscribed to Steelers Fix on YouTube, hit like, and drop your score prediction in the comments. This is Steelers Fix, signing off. Here we go.